Welcome back to our news bulletin. In Afghanistan, a week-long violence reduction agreement between the US, Taliban, and the Afghan security forces has taken effect. The US and the Taliban both set the plan as a precondition to signing a peace agreement on February 29th.
Welcoming the development, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said the army will remain at active defense status during the week. The Afghan National Security Council said the government hopes the peace plan will open the way for a ceasefire and intra-Afghan talks. In a tweet, Taliban spokesman Suhail Shaheen said the agreement will end the country's foreign occupation. The group said both sides will invite senior representatives to take part in the agreement signing ceremony. The Taliban said the signing will be followed by intra-Afghan talks between the country's political parties. Earlier, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the move will reduce the US presence in the country.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has welcomed the announcement of peace deal signing between the Taliban and the US. In a statement, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Islamabad played a constructive role in the US-Taliban dialogue. The Foreign Minister said it was not easy to convince Taliban for negotiations with the US. Qureshi said the whole world, including the US, has acknowledged Pakistan's positive role. The Foreign Minister said Washington should be aware of spoilers in this peace initiative. Taking steps against terrorism, Pakistan has successfully eliminated militants, foiled terror attacks, and brought back stability. In the last 20 years, the country's military and security forces have tirelessly fought against the menace of terrorism.
Under anti-terrorism campaign Radd al-Fasad, the military has carried out almost 149,000 operations and averted nearly 400 terrorist plans since 2017. Due to forces' efforts, Pakistan's economic hub Karachi's ranking has improved by 91 points in the Crimes Index. To stop cross-border terrorism, Pakistan has fenced 1,450 kilometers of its border with Afghanistan. Pakistan Army has built 343 forts and 161 are under construction along the border. Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa said, "The Army is a state institution working for security and stability as a force of peace and order."
In another act of state terrorism, Indian troops have martyred 2 youths in Anantnag district of occupied Kashmir. Police said the civilians were targeted during a cordon and search operation in the Sangam village of the district. Indian forces have martyred 28 Kashmiris over the past 2 months. Meanwhile, Indian forces have arrested 2 Kashmiris under controversial Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. A person booked under the act can be jailed for 2 months without bail. Civilians were arrested for alleged misuse of social media against Indian forces in the valley. The valley is reeling under Indian curfew and communications blackout for the last 202 days. In India, countrywide protests, rallies, and sit-ins against controversial Citizenship Act continue despite the government's pressure. The BJP government is facing massive demonstrations against the law for the last 3 months. In a meeting with Supreme Court appointed interlocutors, Shaheen Bagh protesters said police have blocked the road to sit inside. The protesters said plainclothes policemen are stopping traffic and blaming it on demonstrators, spreading negative propaganda. Meanwhile, similar all-women sit-ins continue in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Lucknow. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has urged his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to stop the Syrian offensive in Idlib. In a phone call, Erdogan said the humanitarian crisis in the war-torn country must end. Erdogan also stressed the need to implement the 2018 Sochi agreement to end the fighting in northwestern Syria. Earlier, the Turkish president asked France and Germany to provide support in ending a humanitarian crisis in Syria. In a phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Erdogan said attacks in Idlib must be stopped. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for an immediate ceasefire in Idlib. Nearly 1 million people have fled the violence in the region since December. In Syria, the brutal war in Idlib has forced tens of thousands of people to flee the region. 3 million people are cornered in an over-shrinking enclave. Half of them are children who are mentally inflicted. Their life is boiled down to bombs and fears. More in this report.
The Syrian regime has launched an offensive in Idlib to take back the final rebel-held bastion. Turkish-backed opposition groups are retaliating to take back locations the government forces have captured. The fight has forced millions of people to flee the war zone. People are not sure where they will go next, as the sounds of jets and bombing are making children sick.
All this displacement is because of the war and the bombing. You hear the sound of the bombing. This isn't our first displacement or our second. There have been many displacements. And every time I say, God, please make things easier, things get worse. And there is more fear. The kids, God Almighty, they aren't running. They hear the sound of the warplanes and they say, God help me. And they hear the sound of shelling and they say, God help me. God rid us of this misfortune.
In some areas of Idlib and Aleppo province, temperatures have dropped down to -7°C, killing several children.
I have a daughter. Her name is Ines and she is 10 years old. She gets scared and can't focus when she hears the sound of a warplane or shelling. She gets really worried. Listen, and there's the bombardment, right in front of your eyes. Look, there's no mercy for the old or the young. God rid us of this misfortune.
Displaced Syrians are sheltering in a camp near the Turkish border. They are cornered in an ever-shrinking enclave.
We suffered a lot on the road because displacement was difficult and there are problems. We want the whole world to see us and learn about our conditions, the children and these camps. It is really a difficult situation, and when you see it, you can learn rather than just hear about it.
The UN has called for a ceasefire to help tackle what it has warned could become the worst humanitarian disaster.
The new coronavirus has claimed another 109 lives in the last 24 hours in China. It now puts the death toll to 2,345. In a significant decline of new cases, the National Health Commission says 397 more infections have been confirmed, bringing the total to 76,000. More in this report.
With the death toll from the new coronavirus outbreak rising globally, fear is spreading at a faster rate. Italy has reported its first COVID-19 fatality, while in the Middle East, 4 people have died in Iran. Iraqi officials have clamped down on travel to and from the country and have begun screening travelers for the virus.
The Najaf International Airport, in cooperation with the Najaf Health Department, has taken all necessary measures by providing detection equipment in arrival halls to check the passengers, and thank God.
The World Health Organization says the international community must act quickly to control the spread of the new coronavirus. The global health body is warning the opportunity to stem the spread of the disease is shrinking.
Our situation is that we're still in a phase where containment is possible with a narrowing window of opportunity. And if there is anything move into another level, then we will announce it as soon as possible. We'll be the first to tell you that we're shifting into another level.
A WHO team of international experts and Chinese officials are visiting Wuhan today to assess the situation.
In Iran, the counting for parliamentary elections have started after voting ended last evening. Over 7,000 candidates are contesting 290 seats across 31 provinces. The Interior Ministry said it will start releasing results for smaller constituencies, while voter turnout will also be announced today. It said final results will be approved by the 12-member Guardian Council in early next week. The ministry added the approved results will be released about 2 weeks later. The parliament represents the country's 207 electoral districts. Some prominent pro-reform politicians and activists have called for the elections to be boycotted. A clerical body is responsible for appointing the supreme leader. Iran has criticized the Financial Action Task Force for placing the country on a blacklist. Foreign Office spokesman Abbas Mousavi called the step a politicized act, saying the stigma of financing terrorism has nothing to do with Tehran. The task force claimed the step was taken after Iran failed to comply with international anti-terrorism financing norms. Musavi said for over 2 years, Iran has followed regulations with regard to money laundering and terrorist financing. Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders has warned Russia to stay out of U.S. elections. Sanders said intelligence agencies briefed him on Moscow's attempts to meddle in the ongoing election campaign. A leading U.S. publication said American officials informed Sanders and President Donald Trump of possible Russian interference. It reported Russia is engaging in disinformation and propaganda to boost the Sanders and Trump campaigns. Sanders told reporters in California American people are against foreign interference in U.S. elections.
Let me tell Mr. Putin, the American people, whether you're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, are sick and tired of seeing Russia and other countries interfering in our elections. The intelligence community has been very clear about it. The intelligence community is telling us they are interfering in this campaign right now in 2020.
In Spain, thousands of farmers have marched on the streets of southern city of Murcia against low food prices and precarious working conditions. Farmers blocked the street with tractors and spread vegetables on the ground in protest. Spain's UPA union said average farm earnings dropped by 9% in 2019 amid declining food prices and higher production costs. Farmers demanded the government take urgent remedial action. Agriculture Minister Luis Planas said Spain will fight to maintain subsidies as close as possible to current levels. Similar demonstrations have sprung up around the country over the past month. Turkish Muslims in Germany have called for stronger government action against far-right radicalism. They are mourning the victims of a gun attack on 2 shisha bars that claimed 9 lives. This report has more.
Germany's Muslims are in somber mood after the killing of 9 people in Hanau. Community members gathered at a local mosque to mourn an event being treated as an act of terrorism. Turkey's ambassador to Germany says at least 5 of the victims were Turkish nationals. Muslims say they are shocked and upset by the attacks.
We don't know how safe we are in Germany right now. So far, we have never seen anything like this in Hanau. It happened so suddenly. Everyone is very scared.
Muslim representatives held a news conference in Berlin. The chairman of the Central Council of Muslims, Ayman Maziak, put a question to the authorities.
The question that we are all asking is, especially the effective people of the Muslim faith in our land, what has to happen next in order for something like this not to happen?
In Berlin, more than 1,000 people took to the streets, showing their sadness, anger and solidarity with the victims of the attack. Across the country, concerns are mounting over the rising number of far-right crimes.
We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to our news bulletin. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has appointed ex-rebel leader Riek Machar as the country's first vice president. The decision comes on the heels of their earlier agreement to form a government of national unity. Machar's appointment was read on state television. Machar will be sworn into office today alongside 3 other vice presidents appointed to their roles yesterday. Kiir has dissolved the country's cabinet. On Thursday, the former rivals agreed to build a unity government before 22nd February deadline, paving the way for today's appointment. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have signed an extradition treaty to ease their tensions. The agreement comes as the common border between the 2 countries remained closed for over a year. In the joint communique, the leaders said the treaty is a legal framework to handle alleged subversive activities of people in the different countries. The meeting was attended by Angola's President João Lourenço and Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi as facilitators. The treaty states that Uganda must verify allegations about hostile actions from its territory against the Rwandan government within a month. Rwanda closed its border in February last year, accusing Uganda of incarcerating its citizens. Uganda has denied the allegations and instead accused Rwanda of infiltrating its security circles. In Chile, hundreds of anti-government protesters have clashed with security forces in the capital, Santiago. Demonstrations over public reforms have again flared up after becoming only sporadic in recent weeks. Young protesters equipped with gas masks and shields threw items at police who tried to break them up with water cannon. Chile has been rocked by protests since October, calling for better pensions, healthcare, and education. President Sebastián Piñera agreed to a referendum on a new constitution in December last year. In Indonesia, 8 students have been killed as a flash flood swept away banks of the Sembor River. In a statement, National Disaster Agency spokesman Agus Wibowo said 23 others were injured while 3 are missing. Wibowo said a group of 250 students was trekking and exploring the river in Sleman district as a Boy Scouting activity. He said water volume from the upstream suddenly rose with a strong current, sweeping away the students who were on the side of the river. The Southeast Asian archipelago is regularly hit by floods during the rainy season, which starts in late November. Torrential rain in January triggered flooding and landslides that killed nearly 70 people in and around the capital, Jakarta. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have decided not to use the term Sussex Royal in their brand from this spring. In January, the Duke and Duchess abruptly decided to begin a new life in Canada, stepping back from their royal duties in Britain. Harry and Meghan had planned to use the name Sussex Royal for their new charitable foundation and social media accounts. For this, the couple had been in discussion with Buckingham Palace. It has now been agreed government rules prevent the word royal being used. The couple will remove the royal name tag from their Instagram and website. Applications to trademark the Sussex Royal brand will also be withdrawn. The two will carry out their final public engagements as members of Britain's royal family until their status changes on March 31st. In Turkey, a blizzard has buried a village in the southeastern city of Yüksekova, leaving the residents without power and water. The entire village has buried under a white blanket, and residents have struggled to dig through 20 feet of snow. Schools have been closed for 3 days, while snowplow drivers have faced extreme conditions in clearing main roads to dozens of villages. Besides isolating 70 villages, the heavy snowfall has disrupted life across the southeastern provinces of Van, Agri, and Bitlis. In Jordan, a small village has found a way to recycle trash it produces, and on top of it, the project is being run successfully with the help of local women. The initiative is helping not only the climate of the village, but also making women self-sustaining through the sale of trash. More in this report.
Jordan generates 3 million tons of solid waste per year. But according to the United Nations Development Programme, the country recycles only 7% of its trash. The UNDP has initiated a program to clean the stingy environment of the village and to make the local women self-supporting. Since its launch, the project has repurposed over 100 tons of waste and making the local women self-reliant.
I like the project since it started the solid waste management idea. For us older women who were at home with nothing to do, this project was a good place to work. It improved our financial status and also gave us an opportunity to do something as opposed to sitting at home all day. Why shouldn't we work? So we are doing it, thank God, and all our neighbors are helping out. Our children and husbands also sort trash, and it is great.
After collection, the trash is taken to a warehouse for sorting and compressing. The women receive a cash incentive of around $300 a month from the UNDP. Residents and store owners have also started supporting the cause. Now, they want to help the women out as well.
Every morning we gather the boxes we no longer use. We put them on a shelf and prepare them so that the women pick them up. They helped us out a lot because we no longer have to pile up the trash in front of the store. They helped us out, and we are also happy that the women are benefiting.
The environmental impact is clear. Residents say the village is cleaner and safer for children to play.
أنا أحد سكان المنطقة هاي.
I'm one of the residents of this area. I live nearby. Before this project, in the evenings when they would bring the trash here, the smell was unbearable. No one could go outside or sit indoors because of the smell coming out of this place. Over the past 2 years since this project started, a massive change happened. This has turned from a trash dump into a garden. There's no smell. Even the residents notice that there's no smell coming from here.
من مكب للنفايات.
Authorities have also launched a national solid waste management training program in the country.
It is official now. The cast of the popular 1990s TV show Friends will soon reunite for an unscripted new episode on HBO Max. 25 years after show's launch, fans can finally rejoice at the one where they will all gather back together. The 6 original cast members will return to the original soundstage at the Warner Brothers studio. The lineup will be Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and David Schwimmer. The show stars took the news to their Instagram accounts, posting a magazine cover featuring the cast from the sitcom's early days. Aniston's post attracted nearly 4.8 million likes in 3 hours. Though the last episode aired 15 years ago, the show's popularity hasn't waned. Market research is saying it is among the most watched shows on Netflix. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.